So, you love an alcoholic? Lessons for a Codependent. Written by Grace W. Roldson. Read for you by Angela Olfast. I walked away. I walk away, soul battered and bruised. I walked away with no more fight left in me. I walked away with my list of failures and defeats. I walked away with a heavy, hurting heart. I walked away not knowing where to walk. I walked away too tired to talk. I walked away only to sit down for a year, in pain and shame. What I didn't know was that I didn't walk away alone. I walked away with a secret, silent blessing in my belly. I walked away walking with an invisible creator at my side. What I did was, I walked away from him, and then I walked toward a new me. Grace Roldson. Lesson: we have rights. Welcome, women. One woman's welcome to another. Walking, I am listening to a deeper way. Suddenly, all my ancestors are behind me. Be still, they say. Watch and listen. You are the result of the love of thousands. Linda Hogan. So, you love an alcoholic. Welcome to my world, and the world of so many other women who have walked before us. For hundreds of years, let me say, most likely thousands of years, women have been suffering this exact same dilemma. A drunken husband. I believe that the dilemma of the drunken husband was what pushed American women to stand up for themselves, to separate themselves from their husband's ownership, and to ultimately seek the right to vote. When we walk this path, we walk with 1,000 ancestors behind us. I came to this theory when I was sitting outside the first home and birthplace of Susan B. Anthony, an honorable woman and an American hero who fought for women's rights. I discovered a tiny fact that has impacted my life so greatly. A fact that was buried in bloomers of all places. That's right, those baggy pants for women. 2 years ago, I sat with my young daughter on Miss Anthony's lawn, listening to a children's story and participating in fun historical kids' activities. To my astonishment, the historian read a line from a children's book that made a connection between bloomers and alcohol. Shocked to hear such a thing, I looked down at my child with my eyes wide. As the historian kept reading the book out loud to us, my mind raced and began to connect the dots. History is a powerful teacher. When I got home, I rushed to verify the information and do more research on women's reasons for requesting voting rights in 1920. I discovered that part of the drive behind the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was that women wanted freedom from a drunken husband. During that time, this was known as temperance. How could I have missed the meaning of this term, temperance, after studying alcoholism for 20 years? As their first right, women wanted husbands to refrain from drunkenness. But first, they needed rights, especially the right to vote. You might imagine my shock because my child and I were sitting there, free of an alcoholic, loving our life of temperance, with equal rights and the right to vote, that sunny day. We were actually living Susan's dream and hope for us. Seeing this dream come to fruition, which would have seemed like a huge fantasy to women in the 1800s, was awe-inspiring. My life of freedom from a drunken husband was owed to a great woman that I will never be able to meet or thank. So I made it my mission to honor her goals in my own life and build upon the foundation she put in place for me and all women. Unknowingly, I walked into an alcoholic relationship. Then I walked out of the alcoholic situation. And thanks to her fight for me, I was free to walk away. That was my vote. Through my research, I learned that women's rights, voting, and temperance were all tied together. Miss Anthony died in 1906, but her mission continues to be carried out. She did not live to see women get the right to vote in 1920, but I think she knew our destiny. That day, filled with gratitude and tears, I felt like I was given a new set of eyes with which to see a bigger vision of what my life was about to become, and a sense of how big my story was about to be for all of women's history. I was living in the transition time of gaining my rights and using my rights. I was living in the space and time it takes to not just realize that I have rights, but live with my rights always in my mind. Times were changing. Telling my story. When I decided to break my silence on the subject of loving an alcoholic by writing my book, startling coincidences began to happen. For instance, when I received an invitation from the town's historical society in the mail, it felt synchronistic. It read, "In 2020, the United States will celebrate the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment giving women the right to vote. That same year marks the 200th birthday of our famous daughter, Susan B. Anthony. Help us give Adams the recognition it deserves as the birthplace of Susan, who is a nationally recognized leader in the women's movement." A tribute to Susan B. Anthony. Independence is happiness. Susan B. Anthony. From that incredibly well-timed invitation, with my book, and with the freedom Miss Anthony gave me, I plan to give her some more recognition she deserves. I also plan to recognize a 1,000-year-old problem that our ancestral women have faced, and we still face today. Surely, this invitation was a 100-year-old confirmation card sent from the past to the present, letting me know that I was on the right path. Has it only been 100 years since we've had the right to vote? Initially, I had some doubts that this book would be of value to women. However, when I received the invitation, it convinced me that my story was important. You might imagine my relief because I had already written half of my book on loving and leaving an alcoholic. Right then, my book became as much about welcoming other women in a similar situation and sharing with them my lessons, as it became about recognizing women's rights with a new historical artifact. My book is intended for women who want to heal from an alcoholic relationship. But first, women must remember their rights and how we established them. Our history is important. There is not a woman born who desires to eat the bread of dependence, no matter whether it be from the hand of father, husband, or brother. For anyone who does so eat her bread places herself in the power of the person from whom she takes it. Susan B. Anthony. I imagine that in her hometown of Adams, Massachusetts, the pioneer of women's rights, Susan B. Anthony, must have known a woman or two who was locked in the unfortunate circumstances of being married to an alcoholic man with no right to own property or to escape legally. Yes, women could not own property, nor could they legally be guardians of their own children in the event of a husband's passing, nor in a divorce prior to 1920. I also assume that alcohol and alcoholic husbands made this even more of a challenge. Do we take our rights for granted today? Coincidentally, didn't prohibition come shortly after women gained the right to vote? Are you connecting the dots too? Lesson: we are not alone. With or without knowing it, Miss Anthony fought the right for our freedom from the disease of alcoholism. She dedicated her life to the vote for women and won rights for us. From her great accomplishment, I believe we must carry out the rest of our rights regarding this freedom by the way we choose to live. Our ancestors knew what women of these circumstances were up against, and they must have known the accompanying social shame, emotional pain, disappointment, and legal complications. Miss Anthony was a hero for women when she displayed the courage to give speeches during those days and spoke up on our behalf. She was an ancestor who walked before us and who I believe is still walking with us. On that sunny day, I learned two important things which have supported my mission to share my story. 1. I have rights. 2. I am not alone. We women can now legally and constitutionally claim our right to live free of the drunkenness. We can exercise our right to live free of alcohol in all its horrible forms and aftermath. We can cast a vote in our own private lives or homes, and we can keep our homes. We have our rights. We can now choose to exercise that right if we find our life and home drowning from alcohol or drugs. We can exercise ourselves from those situations and be our own hero. I honor our women heroes who have gone before us. I honor Susan B. Anthony. It will take more of us great women to accomplish the use of this amendment by using it in our lives. Let all of us women who are faced with the problem of alcoholism in our homes be the heroine in our life. Remember, we are not alone. We walk our walk with our female ancestors backing us and with so many other women alongside us. If we women are going to walk, let's walk with wisdom. Above all, be the heroine of your life, not the victim. Nora Ephron, Commencement Address to Wellesley Class of 1996. My blessing to you. May this book be a blessing to all the women who actively love an active alcoholic. May this book and my story wisdom walk with you as you step through your own story. May this book share the message of transformation and not just the mess of troubles. May you have hope. May you come to courageously place yourself at the center of your own life. May you be the hero you have been waiting for. May you come to a greater understanding of yourself in relationship to alcoholism. May you learn that codependency is not love, but fear. May you conquer the fear of taking responsibility for yourself and making a mistake. May you continuously grant yourself permission to focus on you. May you find a version of a loving higher power to lead and light your way. May you get into alignment with a higher power's will for you and the real you. May you find an inner serenity and the peace that only you and a higher power can provide. May you finally be free to live your own life on your own terms. May you learn ways to love yourself daily. May you heal at the deepest level and at the center of your being. May you listen to and hear your own complete thoughts, words, and intuition. May you honor your soul's calling and messages. May you discover your choices. May you transform your pain. May you handle the truth gracefully, and may you handle reality truthfully. May you grow spiritually and discover a fulfilling spiritual life. Maybe you find yourself and never get lost again. My desperation. I sold my soul. Now I want to buy it back. From who? From where? From when? I've lost years of track. Yes, I'll admit, I've lost myself along the way. I gave up parts of myself to what any man would say. I've bargained whole pieces of me, I dare to say. I'm ashamed to confess that I even threw most of me away. All of me I lost. to survive the pain and loneliness of that day. So here now I sit, in my sad and sorry truth of today. For I cannot see, hear, feel, or know my way. Grace Roldson. Introduction. Question to my readers. Have you suffered enough? Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Haruki Murakami. Does the drinking bother you? Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Do you want to live again? When I first asked myself these questions, every cell in my body screamed, yes. Yes, I have suffered enough. At rock bottom, a soul-destroyed place, enough was enough for me. My relationship with the alcoholic and his relationship with alcohol had become so bad that even my body started yelling at me. I experienced not just emotional pain, but also physical pain. I was suffering. If you are tired of the insanity, if you have finally admitted and have come to the conclusion that you too have suffered enough, if you feel an urge to run away or wake up as a new person, then this book is for you. May it give you strength and reassurance to know that some of us romantic-type women have gone before you on this road of loving an alcoholic. Some of us have paved our own way through the pain, uncertainty, and fear. Grab a hold of your life vest, this book, if you feel it is time for you to jump from his sinking ship and onto the shore to save yourself. Please note, swimming skills are required. I share my personal story with you with the hope and intention that it offers you insights into your story of loving an alcoholic. Almost all of the lessons of loving an alcoholic took place in the depths of my understandings of myself. Sometimes other people's stories have a way of shedding new light on our own. I think it is important to mention the obvious, that every love story is different, unique, and diverse. What absolutely worked for me may in no universe ever work for you. What worked for other women, for instance, getting immediately remarried to a healthier man, didn't work for me. However, more importantly, I discovered what did work for me. I would love for you to discover your own solutions too. A word of caution. As you read my story, please take what you need and leave the rest for when you might need it. This book is meant to be a validating message of hope for you. I do not give specific advice about your alcoholic relationship other than to let my story help you to begin or continue your healing process. I was the author of my life story, and you and your higher power, if you have spiritual beliefs, are the co-authors of yours. In your unique situation of loving an alcoholic, I ask that you use caution, as well as supportive, safe people, and your best survival smarts. Because of the sometimes abusive nature of the active alcoholic, especially when they are drinking. Alcoholic relationships can and often do include violence. I suggest that women seek several supports for themselves and children. I took advantage of all the support agencies available, which included Al-Anon, private therapy, financial assistance programs, church funds, domestic violence and abuse counseling services, police, free legal aid, etc. On top of all that outer support, I went for inner support. I read many, many books on the subject of alcoholism, codependency, and love addiction to educate and protect myself. I don't advocate ending relationships, nor do I advise women to continue to be in a relationship with an active alcoholic. I agree that those decisions are best left to each woman to make with support. Again, I will reiterate if and when any of these lessons may apply to you. I do, however, emphasize taking the personal responsibility of taking care of yourself. I understand the need for basic survival in this situation. I had to take care of myself and manage my life, whether in or out of the relationship with an alcoholic. I understand that each relationship comes with surrounding circumstances that may include housing issues and children. All the factors in an alcoholic relationship need to be considered with caution. I used caution. Another word of caution regarding quick solutions. In my early recovery, I struggled with what I call man solutions. These were not sustainable solutions for me at all. When you stop obsessing about the alcoholic, you do immediately start dreaming up or daydreaming about another man. Do you mistakenly get caught thinking that what you really need is rescuing from this alcoholic relationship by another, richer, better man who doesn't drink? I found that switching men was a lot like moving to Florida. I still took sick little me along to the new state. I still had the same sickness of codependency in my suitcases. As soon as I unpacked, there my problems were again. The love addict inside of me was looking for another hit. So, was my problem really the alcoholic? I ask you, what would it take for you to be the hero in your own life? Do you have a place in your heart for yourself? Is it your turn to be on the stage of your life, rather than revolving around a man that you put a spotlight on? For me, I had to do a man detox that went beyond eating celery, drinking water, and avoiding online dating websites. I had to know, be told, and tell myself that this was my life, and my life was my stage. I had come to realize that I was the hero I was waiting for. Just keep coming home to yourself. You are the one you've been waiting for. Byron Katie. Would it shock you to discover that you are the one you've been waiting for all this time? That perhaps you haven't been waiting for the alcoholic to stop drinking and become the love of your life. Ultimately, you call yourself to change the life you are living. I believe that we have an internal mechanism that can indeed call to us. My inner voice went from a whisper to a yell. When I got healthier within the alcoholic relationship, I heard it cry out at times, and sometimes I was able to push through my fears to answer the call. It's called the hero's journey. My math equations for a better life. I subscribe to the theory that your insides create your outsides. Better said, your inner life affects your outer life and perception of life. What's happening inside of you often creates what's happening outside of you. I have also heard it said a different way, that our personality creates our personal reality. Well, any way it's said, I believe it to be true. I have seen my personality and insides projected into my life. As my insides changed, as I healed, as I got better, I began to demand a different respect out of life, myself, and the alcoholic. When my mind, body, and spirit became healthier, my life circumstances around me adjusted and also became healthier. If you agree that this is true, this means that at any moment, whenever you are ready, on the inside, you can start living a better life than a trapped existence in an alcoholic relationship. My mental math began. My insides equal my perceptions. My outside life equals my inside life. I found ways to change and push through my resistance. Of course, I needed, used, and accepted a huge amount of help. It's important to note that I learned that being ready didn't just mean ready and able to support myself financially, but that I also had to be ready to endure the difficult grieving process, as well as to endure intense bouts of relationship withdrawal. I had to begin emotionally supporting myself. Then I had to pass the loneliness test several times. I had to use the finding myself again factor in my math equation for a happy life. Knowledge of him and myself, plus experiences that I had with him and being me, equals my wisdom. My wisdom applied to my life, plus help, plus a healed version of me, equals a better life. Better life equals happier me. The biggest multiplier, something that helped me the most in my math equations for my escape from the relationship with the alcoholic, was story medicine. I was hearing hundreds of women's stories of love, pain, loss, and survival in the 12-step program of Al-Anon. Recovery in these program support groups and getting doses of story medicine became my strength and ongoing support through the hard times. I found my own answers to surviving and leaving the long-term toxic relationship for good. Recovery from codependency sickness required my full commitment and complete immersion into Al-Anon, plus other popular and effective self-help strategies. I literally rescued myself with recovery and helped myself through my own story. You can too. Sitting in meetings plus listening to other women's stories equals more wisdom to apply to my life. I turned hating myself and my life into loving myself and my life. I went from being hard on myself for mistakes to being gentle with my own humanness. I discovered that I was more fragile than I knew, yet at the time, stronger than I had imagined. There was a way I needed to learn my life's lessons. Sometimes, well, probably oftentimes, I required learning the same lessons over and over just to be sure my old solutions of loving him wouldn't work. I had to nail my lessons down on paper. I had to look at my fear, anger, jealousy, and rage. I had to confess my expectations of this man. Not only did I have to face those mental monsters, but I also had to meet them, greet them, and show them the door. Fear plus fear-faced plus breathing plus self-compassion plus program friends plus a higher power equals courageous acts. Loving an alcoholic man was not easy. The only thing harder than loving him was leaving him. Being involved with him was a major burden and barrier to living to my full potential. My involvement with him and his dilemma took up most of my life. The involvement I had with him took its toll on me emotionally, mentally, and physically. At my personal bottom, at my lowest, with the alcoholic, it became about knowing when to walk away and forcing myself to finally act on my own behalf. I had to repeat the phrase, "I will not self-sabotage," whenever I was dealing with him. Year after year, it became clear. This man I loved, the alcoholic, simply would not get help. In the simplest sense, the decision was therefore made. He made a decision not to get help. I had to make a different decision in response. I knew I had to leave. I had to get the help he wouldn't get. I had to get the help he said he didn't need. I had to get the help that I stubbornly thought I didn't need. There came a relationship mile marker when it became clear to me that the only thing harder for me than leaving the alcoholic was trying to stay with him. I faced the pain of change, and similarly, I faced the pain of never changing. I chose to change. Self-love plus self-approval plus self-affirmations plus recovery plus spiritual solutions equals my ability to leave the alcoholic relationship. If you have already made the decision to leave or have left and are suffering with self-doubt, this book can help you keep your hard-won lessons and, most importantly, remember them, which were my wins in the program. These passages were journal entries after meditation and mindfulness, so I could remember my efforts and awakenings. Sometimes, as we get lonely and forget our pain-filled love adventures with our alcoholic, we can slip back, relapse, into nostalgia. It feels like falling asleep while completely awake. Program people love to use a slang phrase called our built-in forgetter. I was guilty of forgetting just how difficult loving an alcoholic can be. My lesson: look to myself for the formula. I wrote this book to remember my mental math. I wrote this book to myself so that there would be no more living unconsciously and forgetting my reasons for leaving the alcoholic. I was done being pushed around by his alcoholism, isms, and by my fears. I wanted to remember my last brutal bottom that I experienced with this relationship, just as recovering alcoholics in AA try to remember their last drink to stick with sobriety. Lessons learned plus lessons remembered equals not repeating past mistakes. If you have already taken your life back, I urge you to keep it. May you stay awake and remember the craziness of being a player in an alcoholic relationship. May you remember the children who could, can, do, get strung along as well. Before you get started, if you are still involved with the alcoholic, admitting that you love an alcoholic is a significant first step. With self-honesty, you are then capable of establishing a policy of being lovingly truthful with yourself. Honesty and truthful living ultimately became my new clothes. You too can create your own personal contract with yourself to live with truth. If you are still stuck in the confusion stage, you can become willing to have the truth revealed to you slowly as a good start. Willingness is another first step. As you become willing to deal with reality, your mind can become open to the possibility of recovering cherished parts of yourself that you knew before this relationship. If you feel like you never had a self, you may begin to see that you can create yourself, birthing and building a new version of yourself in your lifetime. You can also begin to lift the veil of denial so that you may start to deal with the destruction of the disease. I call this ability stopping the bleed. Always being mindful that I was in an alcoholic relationship helps stop the downward spiral into darkness. When I practiced toxic, codependent behaviors, pausing to name my situation is how I got a small amount of control over the loss and the drain of my power over to alcoholism. I consider it a significant step when I chose to stop the damage alcoholism had on my life. I believe this can occur at any point. The sooner, the better, of course. Still suffering? If you are still suffering, I believe that there is a miracle waiting for you on the other side of hitting your broken-hearted bottom. I equate bottom hitting to that of a spiritual awakening of sorts. It started my new math equation for a better life. I found my miracle to be a shift in my perception. Having the shift was a wonderfully empowering feeling that strengthened me on all levels and enabled me to take my power back. After all, how much more pain and suffering could I possibly endure? I heard someone say that suffering was just another form of processing life. If that's the case, I had overprocessed my alcoholic relationship. I bet you have endured some severe things as well and processed the heck out of the man. So tell me, why would you keep choosing it? Can you find one stress-free reason? It wasn't a mistake that I felt foreboding in my relationship with the alcoholic. It didn't take intelligence to foreshadow that there were storms of suffering available at every turn when loving an alcoholic man. There was ceaseless suffering in my mind, in my soul, and even real suffering in my physical body. It was a soul sickness I experienced with the alcoholic. Every act of betrayal, every lie, and every deception left me with violence in my soul. I took a chance to break my codependency sickness and cut myself free before I actually broke or cut more of my life off from my dreams. At the time of ending the relationship with him, it felt like a real amputation. I had to cut off any ties to him as a way to save the rest of my person. It felt like a huge risk to try to live without the alcoholic. I had made him part of me. Separation was physically painful. When this relationship turned its blackest of black, I became ready to learn my lessons. Are you ready to learn your lessons? Like, really learn them. Are you ready to stop repeating destructive patterns and forge a new path, take an exit, or embark down a different avenue? It's a practice of good self-awareness to know, when do you lose yourself? Why do you lose yourself? How does this keep happening over and over? What's your pattern? These are important questions that I asked myself, and I took the time to answer them. Lesson: ask yourself powerful questions. Throughout my inquiry into the alcoholic's chances of getting sober, I learned that logic, common sense, spirituality, community, and science play big roles in successful recovery from any form of addiction. It shocked me when someone in the program told me that statistically, an alcoholic man's chances of recovering from alcohol addiction was only 1%. They went further to say that only those alcoholics that stayed in AA kept their sobriety. They, the winners, were the 1% of the 1%. Those odds really stunned me. Were those slim to none odds true? The thought saddened me. I wanted my alcoholic to be one of the lucky ones, but reality and statistics were hard to ignore. After hearing this data, not knowing if it was true, not able to find a reliable source of current statistics, I began to think about myself and my chances. Maybe talking numbers and creating math formulas for myself helped me give up the false hope I had. Maybe it was just what I needed to let him go. I thought to myself that if recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous was most likely his only hope of living happy, joyous, and free, some medical studies showed this to be the case, then I concluded that my recovery had to be my solution as well. I came to believe that my recovery was my best chance to live happy, joyous, and free. I wanted to stop waiting around hoping that he would leap into the 1% saved column so that I could finally be happy. I launched my self-saving program because I wanted to be the 1% saved myself. I didn't have a drinking problem, but I had a relating in relationships problem. I found the Al-Anon family groups to be a great program for me to attend regularly to learn more about the family disease of alcoholism, and most importantly, learn more about me. 12-step support group rooms and long-time, faithful recovery people provided me enormous support for my enormous problem. Other fellow travelers who understood my situation, because they had lived it too, were the best aid in my healing process. They were the best listeners, and I needed someone to listen. Today, there are many available avenues of healing and support. If it feels safe to do so, I encourage you to begin your healing process. You might start by looking for and attending support group meetings or private codependency addiction therapy. You might research codependency and love addiction and learn about these important topics from several sources, like I did. I also found great explanations and answers to some of my questions by researching alcoholism. Someone suggested to me that I learn all I could about the disease of alcoholism. So I read the AA Big Book twice. even though I never identified as an alcoholic myself. Lesson: look to yourself for the formula. Do what feels right for you. Do what you feel ready for. Do what feels safe. Your steps are your steps as you explore recovering from the effects of the disease of alcoholism. I am always thrilled to see women shift from trying to save a toxic relationship with an active alcoholic to putting efforts into their own recovering and healing. Once you feel safe, you may try taking some risks. You may take risks you are ready for. Taking risks repaired my broken relationship with myself. I ask you, can you repair the relationship with yourself? Can you recover yourself? Can you restore your lost energy and enthusiasm for living? Can you live the life your soul intended? My answer to these questions was, yes, I can, and I will. So I did. What's your math equation for a better life? Look to yourself for the formula. So I'll ask you again, have you suffered enough? Merely consider and identify while remembering that it is never too late for you to become the woman you were meant to be. Sarah Brand Brethnock, Simple Abundance, a Daybook of Comfort and Joy. Giving is getting. Be part of the solution. Support this author's mission to help women and mothers in need. Grace needs your support. Please consider donating to author Grace Rolson's mission. As a content creator on YouTube and other social media, she is dedicated to helping the underprivileged and disadvantaged women and mothers. Grace gives out many free resources. Please support her valuable work by being a patron, and in return, get access to exclusive vlogs, discounts on her training programs, Zoom links to member-only groups, and be a valued member. For as little as $1 per month, you can support her via Patreon. By attending her free Zoom support groups and book clubs, you get your donations worth. Links to her pre-registration signups for Zoom groups and workshops are available to all Patreon members who donate to Grace. She is counting on your support to keep offering these much-needed resources. To help this author help others, please visit the link provided below. Your generous gift will encourage her and validate this mother on a mission to raise awareness of alcoholic codependent relationship dilemmas for trapped women and family court or legal abuse being done to mothers by narcissists. Her goals include sharing her honest testimony, raising awareness, creating free pamphlets to be distributed to domestic violence agencies and those in need, producing more free PDFs, offering free video trainings that can be used to educate trauma-informed therapists, counselors, and coaches on how to help victims of narcissistic abuse and more. Help this brave and courageous mother keep delivering the truth and standing up for what is right. Knowledge is power, and we can give this power to the victims with education, awareness, and support. Grace thanks you for your contribution. Any and all donations are appreciated. Become one of Grace's valued patrons. Give below.